awesome community, you have to do a 2-day workshop. It sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. It's very fun. Anybody who has done the workshop here can tell you that it was worth their time. The 2 days was well spent, right? And then you take that workshop, and it's really just to sort of give you the basic skills that you need to be able to tell stories, the kind of stories that we are trying to champion. The third bucket of work that we do is skills development. So our skills development track breaks into five. We have the incubator for the creator economy guys. So people who tell stories using social media. So skit makers, influencers, whether lifestyle influencers, podcasters. We also have a skills track for directors. In fact, currently we have a directing course ongoing here, and it's in person. It's 2 weeks long, very intensive, very rigorous, and I think some of our directors are in the room. Some of them are currently shooting their microfilms, at another location, but I think they'll be here shortly. And we also have a track for producers that's coming up in June, sometime not next week, the week after this week. And we have a track for script writers and screenwriters. So that's more one-on-one. When that opens up, we're gonna have opportunity to be mentored by established storytellers in Nigeria and Kenya to make your stories more gender equitable and also to even overall improve the quality of the work that you have produced, right? And finally, we have something called the business of entertainment. This is for everybody, whether you're a producer, a director, whether a scriptwriter, screenwriter, or a storyteller in the creator economy. You have access to learn from some of the best in IP, in accounting, in marketing, when it comes to, in Kenya and Nigeria, when it comes to pushing your stories, making them profitable. Because it's very important that the stories that you tell, even when you tell gender equitable stories, should be able to make you a good living. So that's the work we do at the Entertainment and Media Hubs. And I'm proud to say that, in the around almost a year, we've been running the program for almost a year, even though the hubs just opened up here in December and February in Nigeria. We have quite a few success stories to tell, and we're going to be showcasing two of those success stories here today. Now, I'll just point that in Nigeria, some of the content we've produced from the Creator Economy Incubator, which is for emerging storytellers in the creator economy space, have gone on to reach views of hundreds of thousands and have sparked conversations where you have people like, you know how those threads go, the comment threads, you have just hundreds of comments debating the pros and the cons and whys and why not, of the way that men and women are expected to behave, in their homes and at work. And even here in Kenya, we have quite a few success stories that have come out directly from the training that we're doing here. And one of the people whose work you're going to watch shortly is called Prince. And Prince is quite inspiring because Prince lives in a village. I can't remember the name of his village. I'll have to ask June or Newton to help with that. Prince lives in a village, and some of you might even know him. He has with over 700,000 followers on TikTok. They call him Kenya Hero, right? And he has soaked up so much knowledge from the work that we've done, from the incubator to the gender equitable storytelling workshop. And he actually produced, a story that reflects some of the learnings that he has gotten from here. And not just that, he has actually, still been interacting with the program, interacting with the hubs, and coming up with content. We're going to be showcasing one of the things that he produced during the incubator to show you the kind of impact that we're already making. And we're so excited to see what is going to come out of that. The second person that's going to be speaking here today is another community member, Tracy. Some of you might know her who belong in our community. And Tracy is a health advocate, and it's very interesting to see the work she's doing and how she's using storytelling to amplify that work. I don't know if the media guys are ready for me with our videos. Are we ready? Our video is ready. Okay, great. So I'll just get off the stage for a bit so we can watch our success stories. Welcome. Baby, you're cold. Baby. 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 Babe. Strong.
Amplified. I'm now jobless. You be what? Baby, what are you going to do right now? I don't know. Jesus Christ. What? That's happening. Jesus. Jesus. Baby, don't worry. Things will get better with time, okay? Trust me. You mean time? Yeah, with time. Things don't get better with time. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Things get better with money. Baby, I know this is hard for you right now. I know this is hard for the both of us, but I had an idea. I was thinking about how to combine our efforts and try to work things out for us. For the both of us, I mean for the both of us. How about that? I don't know even where to start from. So, are you planning to leave me? What? Do what? To leave. Are you in your right senses, baby? Surely. They leave you in such a situation. Why? We are partners. And partners work things out together. We are one, baby. Come on. And more so, you are talented. You can use that talent to work things out for us. How about it? Think about it now. Are you listening to me? Are you here? Baby, come here. Babe. Myself. Baby. Yes. I'm home. Today? Kinda ilikuwa mbaya sana. Oh, I know that you're hungry, right? Yeah. Something for us. When you prepare the dinner, I'll be right back. Okay, baby? Okay. Goals will it turn out to be the two-pot knockout? Where is she? Hmm? Nowadays she's leaving early in the morning. Anyway, so I can't even ask where she's heading to. Because when you're broke, you don't even have to ask a lot of questions. Please. In whose hearts would you be safe? Guess what? Yeah. Today we are not eating as we are used to. I don't know. Each and every day, girl is speaking. Today we are going to change our tastes. And I came with some beef. So, baby, today we are going to eat meat, baby. I told you. French your back, okay? Okay. And don't stress yourself so much. Don't stress yourself out. Think of something. Come up with any idea. Ready to support you in any way that I can. Okay, I'll try. I'll try. Prepare the dinner. Then come, watch some movie or something, and have a good time. Yes. Baby, I'm late. So let me prepare something for you. Then I prepare myself. I head off to my friend's place, okay? Okay. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus. I know shit. But wait, project have my. Baby, okay. I'm running late. Take it twice. Take it twice, Ivana. Where is she heading to? Every day, early in the morning, she's leaving. But you know, when you're broke, you can't even just tell one where they're heading to. Or should I ask? Let me, I just figure out myself. Baby, babe, yes. Are you awake? Yeah. Okay, baby, I'll be leaving, but I'll be back by 6:30. I'll be here, right? Okay. You're going to miss me so much. I will miss you as well. Yeah. Where are you heading to? I don't worry, baby. I'll explain it to you. To a friend's house. She has an event. Yeah. And I need to assist her. Okay. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Hey, and make sure you finish your breakfast, okay? Okay. I don't want us to fight over the same thing each and every day. Okay. Don't you appreciate my efforts? Waking up early to prepare breakfast and yet you just leave it there. Sorry. Make sure you finish, okay? Okay. Good day, I'll miss you. I love you. Love you too. Bye, toodles. I think I need to figure out where she's heading every day in the morning. Wait, babe, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you hurting yourself? This job is tough for a woman. Baby, I'm not doing this for my own sake. Doing it for us. It isn't all about me. I'm doing things for us. I know this is a tough moment for you, so I have to chip in and show that we can defeat anything that tries to be difficult to us. And more so, Raymond, you are so talented. You have so much potential in you. It is time to believe in yourself the same way I believe in you. Okay? So you can just try something out. Okay, all right. I can't leave you do all these things alone. I can help you. What? Okay, we can do this together. Baby, are you sure? I'm sure. No, 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 no. The reasons why our sales are going down is because of our marketing online. Our online marketing is very poor and we don't have any good person to market us. Now, what we have to do is to get a very good social media influencer with good following and creativity to market us. That's how we will be able to raise our sales. This. So do this.
get a good person when it's a good social media influencer and get back to me. Okay? So.
Excuse me, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. As I was doing my job,
Yeah.
I overheard you talking through the phone, and you are looking for a social media influencer.
Yeah.
I know a person. My husband. My husband is so creative and innovative. I assure you, he's not going to fail your company.
Who is your husband first?
That's one. That one. The green man.
Green man.
Yeah,
The green
he's
man.
my husband. I assure you. Profit.
The green man is a social media
He's
influencer.
a social media influencer.
Okay, green man. Come. The man in green. The man in green. Come here, please. Come.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Okay. Says Baraka.
Yeah.
I'm the CEO of Monanchi Organization
Yeah.
and the CEO of Pinko Waters. And nimesikia you are a social influencer and a content creator.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So can I check or have a look at your accounts?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Now this is my Facebook account.
Right. This is a Facebook account.
Yeah.
This is with your name.
Yeah.
This is great. 2 million followers. It's just great. Okay.
And now this is my TikTok account.
Wow. Wow. I can't believe this.
And
2
now,
million followers at TikTok.
yeah. And now this is my Instagram account.
This is just great. This is good news.
Yeah.
This is good news. You know, we are what we've been looking for. Tumetembea, and we just have someone who can help us around here. So I want to give you a deal. I just hope you accept my deal. I want you to make you my brand ambassador. If that's okay with you. And I just want us to begin with immediate effects. We want you to market our company. We want to push sales. We want to raise our sales. It's okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want to start with the 300K per month. If that's okay with you.
I'm okay with it. I'm ready to work with you. I promise I will deliver. I'll do a
You
great job.
deserve it. You deserve it. You
Yeah.
deserve it. Of course, you deserve it. So we're starting with immediate effects. Tomorrow, come to the office. We sign the contract.
Yeah.
We seal the deal, and it's nice talking with you. Okay. Just come to the office, send the papers, send the contract, 200K. I'm giving you an allowance also, so that we start the job. Not okay with you?
I'm okay with
You
that.
deserve it.
Baby, baby, what did they say? Tell me that good news, baby.
Wow.
Come on, tell me.
I don't know even where to
What
start.
happened? Start it.
Like the first thing first.
Thank
I
you,
just want
Jesus.
to
Yes.
thank God first.
Thank you, Jesus.
And then I want to appreciate you.
Yes.
You did just help me get the job.
What?
You made me realize who I am.
What?
I never knew I had this great potential. You know, the moment I explained to that madam
Yes.
who I am,
I knew
she was amazed.
it.
She was happy.
Huh?
She was like, I wish I could have met this guy earlier.
No, I know, baby. I told you I trust in you. Trust in you, baby.
Yeah.
You don't have to thank me. This is what partners do, right? And this is the true definition of the strength of us. Baby, we did this! We did this! It's 1 hour that I have been
Hello. Okay, so that was fun. Please do follow Prince Raymond. His TikTok handle was on the screen throughout. Follow him. He actually has a lot of fun content, and he really is a funny guy. So we have one more person, but instead of showcasing her content, we're going to be having her talk to us about her work. Is Tracy in the room? Oh, hi. Hi, Tracy. Please let's put our hands together for her. She comes up.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How are you feeling? So my name is Tracy Aching. So our platform, it started as a podcast called Crimson Courage. So I'm a sickle cell warrior. And it started, thank you, thank you. So it started as a platform for us to be able to tell our stories of resilience. And not just us as sickle cell warriors, we also come together with our caregivers, because without our caregivers, we would not be where we are today. So even some of them are here, maybe they'll just wave, some of the caregivers. Then we have some of our creatives over there. So it's a collective kind of work, a work of passion. So through telling our stories, we were able to shift the stigma that comes with having not only sickle cell, now it grew into now telling stories about resilience for persons living with different chronic illnesses, for even persons with disability, inclusive kind of stories, and also to be able to create change and speak about topics that are kind of taboo. So our episode that was supposed to be shown, I don't think we'll get the time, but I'll just speak about it. We did it in the month of March. So the month of March, as you know, it's all about women, International Women's Day, celebrating who we are as women, our resilience. So we did a podcast talking about something that, you know, within our communities is a bit of a taboo. And this is the topic of menstrual health, period safety, access to the right kind of menstrual products, because you know some of the ones that we have in the market are either counterfeit or they end up hurting us in ways that we are kind of uncomfortable to talk about. So, in partnership with Generation Us, which is a body of young um, what are they called? Sorry. Generation Us is a body of young activists. Sorry, that was the word, activists. They came with a campaign called Beyond the Flow campaign. So we did a podcast talking about menstrual health, period safety, and all of that. And this led to social impact whereby we were able to have a ride on International Women's Day, where cyclists rode from Nairobi to Machakos, create awareness about menstrual health. And also, it ended with us being able to create the social impact where people donated pads and all of that, and were able to help the community that was there. So that's who Crimson Courage is. It grew from us persons who are directly affected as sickle cell warriors. We included other communities such as persons with non-communicable diseases. And right now we are creating change through talking through those things that kind of, yeah, icky to talk about. You kind of feel like you're a bit self-aware. But through those conversations, we are creating the change and we're helping people to understand the kind of support to give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and well done on your work. It's very important work that Crimson Courage is doing. And just to point out that, yes, that they do make use of the podcast studios here for their content. So, yes, you're welcome to do that as a community member. I think I'll just wrap up by saying that we have our goals in mind, what we hope to achieve with this program. But I'll say that it's very inspiring. The actual, when we see, we see it translated, we see it on screen, we see it on social media, we see the outputs that have come out of the program, of the work that we're doing. When we meet the people who have, participated in some of the activities that we have, some of the trainings that we offer, people who have benefited in one way or another, it's always very inspiring. It's more, what we thought we are going to get. We had the numbers down, we had, those goals written. But when it came, happened in the flesh, word become flesh, it's quite mind blowing. And I just want to thank every single person here because yes, we did start the work. Yes, we, did all the campaigns and did all of that. But the truth is, if you did not take the step, if you did not resonate with you what we're doing, if the world that we envision is not the world you envision, you wouldn't be here, right? There's no way you'll be here if what we're doing is against your own values, your own ethos. So it's so wonderful to see that truly in the storytelling ecosystem of Nigeria and Kenya, we do have people who want to see a better world. And I just want to thank you all for coming out today. And I encourage you, please, please, please feel free to take advantage of everything that we have to offer here. I'm going to hand back over to Ida, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Joy. I think we now understand how powerful storytelling is, right? How can storytelling be able to influence behavior, change of behavior, influence what's going on in society? And we know why you're all here today. You know, we kind of split the program in two ways. First, we talk about what we are doing with our entertainment and media labs. And then now we have a very important guest. We know very well. I mean, you're not here for iHub or CC, but we had to pull that in there. We had to. We must. So I hope I'll do her justice. I want to introduce Georgia Arnold. She is the co-founder and former executive director of the MTV Staying Alive Foundation and longtime senior VP of social impact at Paramount, commissioned and produced MTV Sugar, an award-winning edutainment franchise that measurably changed knowledge, attitudes, and behavior on HIV, gender-based violence, and early marriage across Africa. Now, I am very privileged that I'm going to be moderating this session with her. However, we are gonna do it a bit different, right? Gonna give her keynote, and then I will give the opportunity for the audience to ask questions. So we'll do it more or less like town hall style, right? So I hope you already have your queued questions. Hopefully, some of them will be answered during her keynote. If not, you will have a chance to actually ask your questions as we go on with the conversation. So please be engaged, ask as many questions as you can. And yes, Georgia, please. A better round of applause. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having me back again in your beautiful country and back here in Nairobi. I was so excited when I landed last night. I thought what I would do is tell you my story. And I think with every story, if you really want to understand someone's story, you have to know the mistakes that they made. Very early on in my career, I made 3 mistakes that I'm going to tell you about. 2 that should have got me fired, really, and 1 that just shows how naive I was when I started. And then we'll lead up to MTV Sugar. So I'm a little bit older than you guys. I started work at MTV over 30 years ago now. And I walked in as a temp for 2 days. I was going to work for this man called Bill Rohde, who was the managing director of MTV Europe. And back then, MTV was in the US and it was in Europe, and it had just started in Africa as well. But they were really like, it was a bit like McDonald's. You knew what you were going to get on every MTV around the world. And I worked for him for 2 days, and then we got on really well. And he said, "Well, why don't you stay?" So I was like, "Okay, brilliant. I don't have a job. I'll stay." And so I stayed. And the first week, at the end of the first week, he was flying off to Russia. Now, the person whose job, who was leaving, she had organized everything. She'd done his travel, she'd booked his hotel, and she had got his visa. So all I had to do was type up his schedule with no typos, very important, and give him everything and send him off on the Friday. And I did that, and he was traveling on the Saturday. And so this was like my first thing that I'd done for him. And on Saturday morning, and I am talking a long time ago, so I didn't have a mobile phone. Can you imagine? And we had an answer phone at home, which was a tape recorder that you pressed. And I had been out shopping. We got back at lunchtime, and the tape recorder had spooled out. There were so many messages on it. We were like, "Oh, we're popular today." So press play, and it was Bill saying, "Are you there? Are you there? Can you pick up? Georgia, are you there?" And I was like, "Oh, why is he calling me?" And then there was someone else on the phone. There was the head of ad sales. There was the head of HR. There was the head of security, and they were all trying to track me down. And I thought, well, I know Bill is often late for things, so maybe he's missed his flight. So I pick up the phone and I say, hey, Bill, how are you? Shouldn't you be on your plane right now? He said, yes, I should. He said, you know, when you gave me everything yesterday, did you give me my visa? I had filed his visa away because I was so efficient, and I never gave him his visa. He missed his flight. He was on a panel in Russia doing something, and I had been 5 days into the job. And I ran into the office on the Saturday and I picked up the visa. And as I did, the security guy turned around to me and he went, won't be seeing you here on Monday, will we? I was mortified. Anyway, Bill said to me, I mean, when I spoke to him, I was like fully expecting him to fire me. And he said, you will never do that again. And I was like, well, I sort of did do that again. But I'm going to come back to that one. So it turns out I wasn't a very good assistant. But Bill liked me. And so he said to me, look, we've got a charity budget at MTV and we're not really doing much with it. And his job was to create MTV around the world outside of the US. So he said, I want you to find an issue that we should care about, and an issue that makes sense for the MTV brand. It didn't take rocket science to figure out that we should be talking about HIV, because back then, I'm not even sure most of you were born 1994. Yikes. So back in 1994, AIDS was the biggest killer of young people around the world. And it made absolute sense, not only because it was the biggest issue for young people, but also it involves sex. And MTV and rock stars and sex, that was great. So we thought, yeah, we should do something with this. And I went to meet with the UN, and I was very excited. This was like my first grown-up meeting. And the UN said to me, it was UNAIDS, it had just been set up, and they said, we think what would be amazing is if you could do a documentary about young people living and affected with HIV. And I went, well, it's a bit boring. It's not very MTV. And they went, oh, no, I guess you're right. And so that was it. That was the end of it, literally the end of the meeting. And I went home, and that could have been the end of the story. But someone said to me, well, how was the meeting? And I said, oh, you know, it didn't go so well. They wanted to do this documentary. And he said, no, of course we can do something like that. He said, we'll just make it MTV. We'll have an artist present it, and then it becomes MTV. And I was like, oh, wish I'd have thought about that. So that was not a fireable offense, but, you know, that was definitely my lack of creativity and vision in what I was doing. And so the first artist that we worked with, now, Joyce, I don't know where she is, but she actually knows who I'm about to talk about. You probably won't. So anyone know who George Michael was, or Wham? Oh, there's some nods. How exciting. Yes, excellent. I've been told it's like the equivalent of BN here in Kenya. Yes? Maybe. Okay. Okay, that could have been bad advice. Anyway, I happened to grow up in the same village as George Michael. Wham were my jam. I adored them. And when I had the opportunity to film with George Michael, I was so thrilled. I also happened to be 9 months pregnant. I could have been in labor. I would still have made that shoot. It still remains one of the highlights of my life. And so we made this documentary hosted by George Michael. And we produced it, and that was the very first documentary of Staying Alive. And from there, we then decided that we had this documentary. We thought that we would do a screening in London. And so we hired out a really fancy, posh cinema. It had really comfy seats, and there was about 120 people there. It was all full up. It was the great and the good of the HIV world in London. And Bill Rodey got up on stage to speak. And it was the first time anyone had said, not something nice about me, but like about the work that I was doing. And I was so excited. And he gave a little speech and everyone clapped, and he gets off stage and he said, okay, great, let's roll the tape. Because back then nothing was digitized. You literally took the physical tape. It was a literal tape. But guess what? I'd left it on my desk. The lights had gone down. There was silence, and Bill turned around to me and he said, "Why aren't they playing the tape?" And I went, nearly, honestly, I wanted the ground to open me up. So I really should have got fired again, but amazingly I didn't. Bill opened the bar, gave everyone a drink. Our poor intern had to run about 15 minutes down the road to go and get the physical tape and bring it back again. I don't think she'll ever forgive me for that. But anyway, let's scroll forward. Those were my biggest mistakes that I think I've made. Thankfully, I stopped making them after that. I began to learn lessons like always give responsibility to someone else. That was a very good lesson I learned. And so we did a lot of these documentaries. And then one thing I did, realizing that I had a superpower, and my superpower was and is coming up with big, stupid ideas. And as long as you have someone who you work with, who can then take that big, stupid idea and make it a little bit more focused and real, then maybe you could actually do something with this. And my big, stupid idea at the time was, it was coming up to Nelson Mandela's 85th birthday. And I realized that our audience outside of the continent of Africa, they might know the name Nelson Mandela, but didn't know his story. And so I wrote a letter to his office, a cold letter. I had no contacts there. And I said, I want to tell his story and put it on MTV. And they phoned me up and they said, come over, let's talk about it. So we made a documentary called Meeting Mandela. And we took 4 young people, each of whose lives related to parts of his life. And we also used archival footage, and we filmed with each of these young people in their homes. So we took Henry from Uganda, who is living with HIV and whose family had been pretty much wiped out because of AIDS. We took Minzin from Burma, who lived in exile in Thailand. And we took Guy from Israel, whose sister had been killed by a suicide bomber, and Jumana from Palestine, whose father had been killed by the Israeli army. And the 2 of them sat with Mandela and they asked him, how did you ever shake the hands of your enemy? And it was, as you can imagine, and it was so relevant today and just so powerful. But it was Henry who I always feel, I don't know, every time Henry opens his mouth, I feel like somehow he's got a little bit of Mandela lodged inside him because he's an amazing, amazing man. Henry had never been outside of his where he grew up in Uganda. He'd never been on a plane. He happened to be a huge Arsenal fan. No, I am a Spurs fan. Sorry, if you know, I don't know the equivalent, but basically Arsenal and Spurs are London teams and they don't get on with each other. One of my greatest sacrifices was taking Henry to Arsenal. I thought that was very good of me. But Henry was really incredible because we watched Henry at home. We filmed with him and we thought, what does Henry need? And Henry needed to do more. He was an amazing activist working in HIV, but he needed some formal education, right? Some training, like you guys are getting here. He needed someone to trust him. And he also needed a little bit of money because money makes the world go round. And it was because of Henry that we decided that we needed to move from being documentaries on MTV on World AIDS Day through to being a foundation, which is what it is today. And because I really believe in full circle moments, Henry ended up being the vice chair of MTV Staying Alive Foundation. He is an incredibly wise man. He lives now in Canada with his wife and his possibly 6-year-old son now, and and ran a marathon last month. He's quite something. So we then continued with the content, and then we started giving out grants. And we gave out grants to young people. In fact, Kenya, by the way, we always gave out the most grants to young Kenyans. But there is one of them, talking of full circle moments, who happens to be sitting here. She's no longer as young as she was. Sorry, Jackie. Give us a wave. Jackie Kawa. She was one of our very original grantees also ended up sitting on the board at MTV Staying Alive. And hopefully Jackie and I one day are going to work together as well. But she's now doing work for the MTV Staying Alive Foundation. So full circle moments are really important. But we wanted to do more than the documentaries. We wanted to move off of World AIDS Day. And so we started to think about what if we created drama? How do we take those stories around HIV and make them into something that really not just reflects the audience and their own experience, but is designed by them, created by them, is their voices? And so we started off with a pilot project working in the Caribbean, Ukraine, and Kenya. And Kenya was like our gold star. It had a little bit of everything. And that was really where MTV Sugar was born. It was 6 episodes. We cast an unknown actor at the time called Lupita Nyong'o. And look where she went. You may say that Brad Pitt discovered her, but I think we say otherwise. And it went from there. And now I believe that MTV Sugar is, I have lost count, 15 series in. It's gone from Kenya to Nigeria to Cote d'Ivoire to South Africa. And also India has its own version called MTV Nished, which means taboo. Which I love and is very different. And we did a lot of that even during COVID. So with me and my big stupid ideas, first week of lockdown, I could not sleep. And I was getting up at 5 in the morning and going for walks in this big park near where I live. And I was really worried about the foundation. How was I going to pay the staff? How are we going to keep getting funding to do what we do? And then I literally had a dream. And in my dream, I had all of the Sugar cast from around the world talking to each other on Zoom. And I woke up in the morning and I thought, but this is what we do. MTV Sugar is about telling stories, but about young people's lives and the experiences that they're going through. Why can't we do that during COVID? People need information. People need to know what they can and can't do. And so I, on Zoom, spoke to my team and I said, I've got a brilliant idea. We're going to do an MTV Sugar now. And they all looked at me blankly. They were like, oh, she's having one of her big ideas. And then my partner in crime, an amazing woman called Sarah Peart, went, okay, let me figure out how we make this happen. And within 48 hours, we got funding to make it happen. And between April 2020 and September of that year, we produced, I think, 50 episodes. They were 10 minutes long. We scripted them 10 at a time because the laws were... So we filmed in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and the US for the first time. And the laws in every country were different in terms of lockdown, and they all changed all the time. So we had to script every 2 weeks. And everyone filmed on Zoom or on their phones, and it was about getting those messages out there. So that was quite intense, but it was about saying how important storytelling is at a time of need. And so that's what we wanted to do. I would say that when we started MTV Sugar here in Kenya, this will date it, Facebook had only just come out. So I remember coming here and meeting the cast for the first time, and they were all so excited because their Facebook numbers were going up and up and up, and that was like such a big deal for them. And I would say that MTV Sugar Series 1 probably got the most criticism of all, in that it was a little bit shishy. The guys were driving BMWs and they were students, and it was like, really? Is this like real? And so we really had to think about making sure, and we took all of that on board because we always went back to our audience to find out what they thought about it. So that was really important to us to learn those lessons. And then scroll forward a few years later, and I was still at Paramount as well, and Paramount owns MTV. I set up a social impact studio there during COVID, which was amazing. But I realized that it was time for my next life moment. And so I stepped down from MTV, Staying Alive, and Paramount at the same time. I did it. I went through a whole grieving process, so I gave them 12 months' notice so I could do it slowly and take my time and make sure that we could find someone different from me and brilliant to take over. And Wame Jallow now runs the foundation based in Botswana, and she's superb. And I think it's really important that when you have been able to set something up, as I did, that it lives on, not lives on in my name and in my image, but actually it lives on by itself. And that to me is really important. I don't know if anyone is here from MTV Sugar Mashariki or not. I'm going to tell you, I don't know who's seen it. I've seen all 8 episodes because I have people who I know who could give me all the episodes. And I say this almost through gritted teeth, but it's fantastic. It's a whodunit. It's very different from what we've produced before. I have other favorites. I love Down South. I think that the last series we did, which was the last one I was involved in, I thought it was amazing. This is pretty special, and I tell them that all the time. The last thing I will say is that we do. The thing about MTV Sugar is it's not just a TV show. And that is really important. When you think about your storytelling, is thinking about where else can you take it? So we create content to be used on as many platforms as possible. So you can watch it on Citizen, you can watch it on YouTube. It's obviously got all the social media. There's a radio series that will come out because of this. There'll be a graphic novel that will come out with this. And in fact, Mashariki is in partnership with Shoe Jazz here. So they're doing a huge amount of work as well, and they've all got the same formative research with young people that Shoe Jazz have run. And then we do peer education. And for me, the peer education is what is incredibly powerful about what we do, because it's not just telling the stories, it's the impact that you have as well. So the peer education the curriculum has been always being created by this amazing man over here. Everyone to look at you. One of the things I have learned is my transition from MTV to my own agency is I no longer have a brand to hide behind. People I used to walk in a room and it was like, oh, she's from MTV. Quick, make room for her. And now it's just Georgia. And that's really interesting process to go through, is not to hide behind the brand anymore, but actually I have to prove myself each and every day. And I'm really loving it. So thank you for having me here today. I hope you do have questions and hopefully I can answer them for you as well. But it's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Georgia. Sorry, should have figured out the mic situation. But can I get another mic? To be honest, I am inspired. Because when MTV Sugar, the other one, came out, I resonated with it, right? It was made for us, I believe, mostly millennials. Um, and now we have which is now, also made for the current generation. But the one question I want to ask, why sugar? The name, how did it come to be? Maybe some people know, I don't know. Do people know why choose the name sugar?
The name Sugar sort of came out of a conversation around, because one of the Lupita's storyline was around sugar daddies. And I believe that sugar, the way that it's spelt, is slang. Oh, good, I've got that right. What does it mean?
Sugar.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ask them.
Okay. So it really came out of the conversation. We didn't want to spell it as like, we didn't want to call it sugar daddy.
Okay.
We wanted it to feel very Kenyan, because at the time, by the way, one of the things I never did was have a vision or a strategy. I could come up with all the big ideas, but I never really knew where I was going. I mean, I walked into this company just to do 2 days of temping work and then never left really until now. But so I couldn't say, oh, I've got this vision to create these series and it's going to go across the continent and into India and this is amazing and it's going to change lives because we have evaluation that proves it has saved lives. I didn't have that vision. So it was like, oh, what should we call it? It was like, oh, we need to give it a name quickly before we submit it. And sorry, that's a really not a very good story of why we called it Sugar.
It still came to life, so it's fine. And so much has gone to building what it is now today. But before we go to the audience, one question is community engagement when you're telling the story, because you're telling story based on HIV, which was stigmatized at the time. How did community engagement look like? Did you guys have to do like research? Did the government have an opinion on the story that you were telling at the time? And how did that look like while you're creating the series?
So the one thing that has always been the same is community engagement, is making sure that we talk to young people, not just before, but during the script writing process, and then afterwards as well. And that is absolutely crucial. Their voice is the most important. So I'll give you an example that happened in South Africa. I was in a school with Jim in the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, West. Never very good with my geography. So we're in the Western Cape and it was pretty rural and it was a group of young boys and young girls and we were showing them the series of MTV Sugar Niger because we had not gone to South Africa yet and we wanted to show it to them and say, if we were going to bring MTV Sugar to South Africa, what sort of stories do you want us to tell? And I was up on a stage and I had a mic, and this young girl came forward from the back and she was wearing her grey school uniform. Her skirt was rolled up probably like one bit too high for her parents, I'm sure, if they'd have seen her after she got out of the car. And her cardigan, was like off her shoulder. And she had fabulous attitude and confidence. And she walked onto stage and she said, I know what the story should be. So I was like, brilliant. Tell me, because this is why we're here. And she said, well, someone's got to die. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. And we had been really specific. We were 4 series in, 2 in Kenya, 2 in South Africa by now. And we never had anyone die. And we never had anyone die because it was really very much about HIV, those first 4 series, although it was changing for South Africa. But we didn't want someone to die because of AIDS. We wanted to be able to show hopefulness and optimism. So I said, oh, okay. I said, well, how do they die? And she looked at me and she went, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You're the producer. You're the one who should know how they die. And I was really put in my place. And I said, oh, okay. I said, if you can't tell me how they're going to die, we'll go away and figure that out. But can you tell me why they have to die? And she said, yeah, that's easy. She said, you told me that MTV Sugar reflects our life. Well, in our life, someone always dies. And so I went outside. I phoned up the producer. I said, I've got an amazing storyline for you. I said, someone's got to die. And they said, oh, brilliant. How do they die? I said, that's not my problem. Anyway, someone does die. And the actress who played her, we didn't realize was phenomenal. She was so good. And she was so good, we actually discussed the idea of her coming back in as a ghost in series 2, which she did, and it was rubbish. It did not work at all. But Stephanie Sandow was such an amazing ambassador for the work that we were doing. She's the other full circle moment. She's currently the chair of the MTV Staying Alive Foundation, and she's really amazing. Yeah. So it really does come from the audience.
Right. I see this power of community. I'm always going to be biased towards community and community engagement. Was there any pushback while you guys were creating this story?
There was no pushback from that. The interesting thing about South Africa was it was the first time we could legally have a storyline around safe and legal abortion. And it was the first time that legally we could have a character who came out as being gay. We could not do that in Kenya. We couldn't do it in Nigeria. And that was really interesting. In fact, in Kenya, the pushback, we always work with governments, right? And my philosophy is if you want to change things, you can't break boundaries. Because if you smash them down, guess what's going to happen? The TV sets are going to be switched off by those who have the power. Also, I work for MTV, and if MTV got thrown out of a country, I really would have got fired then. So when we were doing Series 2 in Kenya, we did want to have a gay character. And the government said, you can have a gay character, but they can't be Kenyan. So we did have a gay character, and it was so fleeting, I can't tell you. It was like at a bar, and a guy approaches another guy, and that was sort of it. But we made a point. We made a small point. Interestingly, with Reggie, who comes out in Down South. So one of the things with MTV Sugar is, I'm sure you guys know, it's on YouTube. So you might watch it on Citizen, or you might watch it on YouTube. But in Nigeria, they're watching Mashariki on YouTube. Right. So we had an issue because we also have broadcasters across the continent who air it. So we cannot air the South African storyline in Kenya on Citizen TV, right? They won't air it. So we had a dilemma. Would we not distribute it? But we had some really important messaging to put out there. So what we did was we created two versions. We created the version where Reggie comes out, and we created the version where Reggie's still gay, right? We're not changing who Reggie is. But the storyline was much more about him and his father, and his father wanting him to focus on his academics, and Reggie wanted to be creative, which might be a bit clunky metaphor, but it worked. We wrote to every broadcaster and we said, these are the two versions. Which one should we send you? The only country that took Reggie's coming out storyline was South Africa. But on YouTube, it was the only place where we only ever aired Reggie's coming out story. And what was fascinating were the comments. So it started off very, very homophobic. And we were sort of getting involved, but then we realized that the community were pushing back. And they didn't agree and they were having discussions with each other, and it was about talking about Reggie's story. Now, in Series 2, Reggie gets a boyfriend, and I was so excited. And there was virtually no homophobic comments. Now, we haven't changed people's minds, right? People think what they want to think. But they realized that Reggie wasn't going to change. And that, I think, was a win. We couldn't smash those boundaries, but we can gently push them.
Absolutely. And I guess that's the power of storytelling, right? Just slightly changing societal thinking and, what society would conform us to think. So, yes.
Hi, Georgia. Nice to meet you. Hello. My name is Sharon. I'm also a producer, podcaster,
And I'm also an entrepreneur. So just like you, I left a big brand and I'm trying to, move away from from relying on a big brand that I've worked at for a few years. So I'm curious, when you create this content now independently, do your clients ask you how they can measure the impact? And how do you go about those metrics? How do you justify the budgets that you need? How do you justify the return on investment or return on impact? What are those exact metrics that you use to justify the need to tell these stories and the budgets that are required? Thank you.
That is such a good question, Sharon. So, I guess the backstory that I didn't talk about was the impact of MTV Sugar. So, every MTV Sugar has been evaluated independently and financed, separately from the production. And what we know with all of these different evaluations, they've been done by the World Bank, they've been done by UNICEF, they've been done by Johns Hopkins and others, very esteemed establishments. And we know that if you've watched MTV Sugar, you are twice as likely to know your status for HIV, you're twice as likely to know about and use a self-test kit and to know about and use PrEP. And they did biomarkers, so they tested people for chlamydia, and they saw that over 8 months, if you had been exposed to MTV Sugar, as a young woman, you were 55% less likely to have chlamydia than if you hadn't watched MTV Sugar, that sort of blows my mind that. Now, I am not a scientist, right? And there's probably, I don't want to, assume anything, there's probably no scientists in this room. Unfortunately, if we're working in impact storytelling, you need to prove that you're having an impact. And it's not difficult, but then it depends who you're working with. So the Gates Foundation, who have funded a lot of MTV Sugar's evaluations, they like the data and they like the science stuff. And so they spend almost as much money on their evaluations as they do on the production, which drives me crazy. Right? For me, I think there is nothing wrong than getting a group of people in a room who are your demographic and having conversations with them, like the qualitative stuff. So my guess is that, funding and a scientific evaluation can cost up to $2 million, right? You're probably not going to get that money. But what you can do is you can do the qualitative stuff. And the qualitative stuff can be done in real life, but it can also these days be done online. It can be done on WhatsApp. You can do polling on WhatsApp. You can send content around. You can do it on Instagram, and you can do it on Facebook as well. So for me, evaluation is absolutely crucial. I'd say in my career, unfortunately, 85% of my time has been spent fundraising. Right. So although we've got the MTV brand, everything that we did had to be funded externally. And I was chief fundraiser. I only loved the bit when we got the money. I hated all the rest of it. But a lot of that had to be spent doing funding evaluations, because once you proved that it worked, then more people were likely to fund you. And then you had to prove that it worked again. We know it works. Right. And so for me, that's what drives me crazy. So it's really important to do, but there are ways you can do it that are a little bit down and dirty and less expensive than posh ones, that you'll still get the same results out of it.
Not that far. You didn't have to stand, but thank you. Such a lovely person. Okay, so hi. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm sure a lot of people have learned from it, because in the beginning also people make a lot of mistakes, and it's good not to beat yourself down and to keep moving. So I'm one of the people who was affected by the first sugar, because I believed when I went to campus I would have a really big car, which normally doesn't happen. But my question is, because she asked about the measurement, my question is, even before like the funding, the first stage, because usually you can have an amazing idea, you can even have like the team who are ready to like make it happen, but without the resources to do it, sometimes you can not get the impact that you desire or you want, because you are working you have to be resourceful, but you are limited in the resources that you have to produce, and you are judged by what you produce. So how can a young person or a creative here with an amazing vision or an idea that can impact the world kind of like start in a way that they can like justify those resources in a way that people can believe in the vision? Because you also don't want to be like so many creatives who are appreciated after their time, because you can do more while you're alive. And staying alive, I think, yeah, that's my first question.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is like, where are like, how do we find the resources? I mean, I would say, so first of all, from when I started to now you guys are starting, life is very different out there because there was not a job called a creator at the time, right? And that really is what a lot of people do these days. And I think it is a phenomenal opportunity because you've got places like the Media Hub here that are giving you these spaces, they're giving you training. And I would say you have to take every opportunity that you come across. But the other thing I would say is you do have to prove yourself. And, look at what Prince did, which I thought was fabulous. And he's got 700,000 viewers on TikTok. He has got his own platform that people are going to. And the way that you prove yourself is doing it. And I know that's easy to say without having lovely, flashy cameras to hand. But if you have somewhere like here where you can use it, or quite frankly, our phones are good enough these days. I don't really use TikTok. I'm so old. I don't know how to edit stuff. I have, other people do that and I wonder at their skills. But, being able to use the resources to hand that are free. So it's sort of the same as the evaluation, right? They're linked, right? You have to prove yourself time and time again. You're only as good. MTV Sugar is only as good as its last series. And if you're not keeping up with the audience, if you're not showing up and in each and every space, then everyone will forget about you. So you have to keep on doing it and you have to grab the resources that you can.
Absolutely. And just to mention on what Jojo has said about what resources actually exist, it's having been in the startup ecosystem for a very long time, if 10 years is a long time, is is the opportunities do exist, but sometimes we also struggle in getting people through our programs, right? We have had the entertainment and media labs here for what, maybe now 7 months. But that's just part of one of the programs that exists in the creative economy spectrum of it, right? There's Baraza Media Lab that is doing amazing work in storytelling as well. I don't know how many people are part of that community. And one of the things I always say and I'll always advocate for, maybe because it is part of my title, is communities are really big. There's a really big influence when it comes to community, right? Join these groups, join these communities that actually know and can relate to, because that's where the power of collaboration comes in. That's where the power of networking comes in, right? And partnerships as well. So we always want to do things ourselves, but sometimes working with people and working with communities around you can actually push you much further than you think you would. So they do exist. Of course, you still have to do a little bit of research here and there, but to be honest, there are a couple of opportunities that exist within the creative economy space. You had a question. Sorry, he raised his hand first.
Hi, my name is Elvis. I'm a writer.
Hello, Elvis.
You said that during the COVID, you used to take 2 weeks to do the scripting. So my question is from a writer's perspective, like how from the drafts that you write, how do you determine that this is the perfect draft that we are going to use to shoot? And how many drafts do you write before finalizing to the final draft, the script? Yeah.
So I will say that Alone Together, which was our COVID series, if you watch it, those scripts aren't fabulous because we had to do them so quickly. And we were never in the same room together because we couldn't be, it was difficult, but we pulled it together and, but I wouldn't say like they're up there in terms of quality. One of the things that I think that people don't spend enough time on is the writing. Because if you get the writing right, that if you get the writing wrong, then the rest of it has no chance. If you get the writing right, everything else then has to live up to it, right? That is absolutely crucial. So I don't know how long it takes. It depends on how long you've got, how much money you've got. But being able to see a script, one of the things I love about creating is when you start with a blank piece of paper. And when you finish, you see it on screen, and it is never what you first imagined it would be because it's gone through so many iterations, and I love that. But when I'm an editor. So not a physical editor, but I edit scripts. I drive people crazy. And I'm never very diplomatic with my comments either. But, it was an iterative process and it was a team process. So if you submitted a script for the next episode of MTV Sugar, you would have a few people reviewing it. And you would have, firstly, MTV Sugar, I should say, as a white British woman living in London, I am not the creator, right? The creators are wherever we're working. But what my expertise was being able to make sure that messaging would have an impact. So that was where I had a voice in it. But everything else was written by, MTV Mashariki has been produced by the amazing production team, all based here. But so it would go back and forth. And so, for example, with Down South, I remember seeing a scene, and it was like the team the production company were working with Burnt Onion, who were brilliant entertainment producers, but they weren't, and I say this with respect, they just knew they had to get messages in there. So it would be like a scene between a girl and a boy having sex for the first time. Have you got a condom? Oh, yes, here's my condom. Oh, let's use it. So, where my voice would come in would be to soften that a little bit and work on how that would work. So, but the more you work on the script until everyone feels that it's perfect, that's when it comes out. And I do think that often people just think, oh, well, we've done 3 drafts of the script, that's fine. But maybe it's better to go back again, even if it drives you crazy. That if the script isn't right, the rest of it won't be right, however good your production team are.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm St. Mark, a writer, and I was once a Gen Z. Yeah, so this is important to the story because when the sugar came out, we had a CBO in Dagoretti, and we were contracted to facilitate video sessions in social halls and video den. So sugar meant money in the pocket for me, and also from a behavior change perspective, really changed my life because I could see as a creative, place myself in different scenarios, and also helped me navigate the formal employment space when I got there. So I could learn from the Lupitas, the Antoninios on all what they had and how to navigate that space. Now back to the question. So thanks for that opportunity. Yeah, really affirmed me. And also really showed us, because Dagoretti is like more or less a slum area, Kawangware, really showed us how Westlands people live. So that was also life affirming. So it gave us more inspiration. There's more to life than Kawangware. We could cross to Westland. Yeah, so the question is, how do you get your casting right, your messaging right, and the cinematics rights? Because like for us, when we were doing the sugar, that Lupita Nyong'o scene, hand on the window, was really awing, even to the audience. Thank you.
Can you just, so casting, messaging, what was the third one? The cinematics. Okay, so where shall I start? Messaging. I'll start with the messaging. We tended to, well, we always work very closely with our funders. So I follow the money. And the money, so if someone came to us, and when we started, it was just HIV, but as we expected, we could do different topics. Today, it's around mental health and substance abuse, as well as about HIV and about contraception. So our messaging would be very much led by some of what the funders wanted us to talk about. So when PrEP came out, we got funded to talk about PrEP, not by the pharmaceuticals who wanted to, get PrEP out there, but actually by the people who were who were like trying to get it taken up in the countries. But then we would work with experts to make sure. So if we were doing a scene about PrEP, or about for a young girl going into a clinic and deciding what contraception to use, we would make sure that not only would we have someone advise the writers on what would a nurse say to a young woman about her options on contraception, but if she's going to then fit the coil, what are the steps that are taken, so that we can make sure that we get it right. And during filming, that expert, whoever the expert was, would be on hand to make sure that we were doing things in the right order and in the right way. When we showed someone self-testing, were they using it in the right way? So that was really important, that we worked with experts always. In terms of both casting and cinematography, that is down to the production teams that we worked with. But casting has always been interesting because we did two things. We would work with casting teams, a casting director, and they would be looking for who were the up and coming names. But we started to do, I think the first time we did it was in the first series in Nigeria. We started to do open calls for casting. And when we did it, it was a marketing thing, right? It was like, oh, MTV Sugar's coming to town. Who wants to act in it? And we would have like, oh, you get walk-on roles. In every single series we've done it, we found major roles coming out of these casting audition things. So, and that has been really fun, being able to see people's careers start with MTV Sugar in that way. Lupita was known in Kenya. She had already, this wasn't the first role that she'd done. So she was someone that the casting agent said, oh, she'd be really good to get. The other thing that's happened in the last few series is we also these days look for influencers. I sort of say that with a bit of a sigh, but we do look for people who've got big followings. And because we had the MTV brand behind us, we also always worked with key talent in each country that we were working with. And that could be for the soundtrack. It could be for, we often used to have performances with, I can't think of anyone from Kenya at the moment, but we had WizKid in Nigeria who would come on. We had, we did have one actress in Nigeria who's a musician, but she acted in the Nigeria series. Yeah. She wasn't very good. She's a great musician, but she should stay a musician, in my humble opinion. Yeah, off camera. But that's sort of the different ways that we did it. But it was always led by the country teams.
Answered? All right.
And there's some back there as well, I can see.
Hi, Georgia. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
So it's a two-in-one question. The first question is, you mentioned that you've left employment and now you're running your own agency. So, and I'm sure everyone in the room is curious to know, well, I'm curious to know, what are you currently working on in your agency and what are you excited about with that new chapter? And then the other question is, you mentioned that you joined MTV as a temp for 2 days. So what was your background, especially like just academically? How did you end up joining that sector or joining MTV?
Loving these questions. So when I started the agency, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left MTV. I had a couple of jobs that came to me, but I realized I didn't want to be employed again. I didn't want to have a board to report to. I didn't want to have staff who had problems and I had to, so I decided I didn't want to do that. I was just going to set up on my own. So I started working, and I have a rule. My rule in running my own business is no assholes allowed. And I somehow, 1 year on, I have stuck with that rule. And it means that I'm really lucky, I've been able to choose who I work with. So I have a passion project that I am working with pro bono here in Kenya. It's an organization called Inua Dada. It's run by Janet Mbugwa, who is the TV journalist. And I know Janet from my previous work, and she's amazing. And Inua Dada is a period poverty organization. And this is the only organization I am actually fundraising for. And I'm doing it pro bono, and I don't know if I'll be successful or not, but I am so passionate, and I really believe in, when you hear about organizations trying to keep girls in school, you never ever hear them talking about period poverty. The one thing that would keep a girl in school through, their entire education is being able to make sure that when they have their period, they have pads or tampons or period pants. So, that is something that I think is fundamental, our fundamental human rights, to be able to open up a drawer. I am so happy to see you two men nodding your head as I'm talking. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But, to be able to open up a drawer and put on a pair of pants that hopefully you have access to clean water, you can wash them, and you know that you can use them again. And that to me is what I'm like, that's my passion project. I'm also doing work with the Gates Foundation, which is why I'm connected to iHub, because it's one of their grantees. I'm working with MTV Sugar and Shoe Jazz on their project, and I'm working on some projects in Nigeria as well. So I'm advising on the content they're producing, and so I'm loving doing all of that. And I'm really enjoying it. Also, very randomly, I'm working with some Central European broadcasters in Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Bulgaria. I always forget some of these. There's 6 of them. And I'm teaching these national broadcasters how to create social impact content. And it is really good fun. So I've been very lucky. People have come to me and I love it. And remind me of your second question quickly. Oh, my background. Okay, so I was the first in my family to go to university. I didn't go to university, I went to Polytechnic. I went to Birmingham Polytechnic. It was not a particularly great institution. I studied media and communications. I really wanted to be a camera woman, except I wasn't very good. But while I was there, the course wasn't brilliant. I had a photography teacher. I took photography as a major, but he made it clear to me that if I wanted to pass, I needed to do a little bit of extra curriculum work. So I dropped out of his photography course because I did not want to do the extra curriculum work he suggested. But I passed. I got a 2-1. It was all right. It wasn't great. But one of the things I did while I was there, I've only just thought about this. I set up my own business. I set up something called Graduate Image. And me and a girl called Katie, who I have no idea where she is now, I can't find her on any social media, we set up a production company together. And we did really bad films for people. They were like corporate videos. But they paid money and it paid me through university. And because I had that experience when I left, there was no email. I'm aging myself so much. We didn't have email. So you're all laughing at me because I'm so old. I got a production guide of production companies in London where I lived, and I typed out my CV and my cover letter, and I sent out hundreds of letters. I sat at my parents' kitchen table, and I was desperate to move out, and I wasn't earning any money, so I couldn't. And a company phoned me up and said, "Come in, we need an office administrator." And I went in and I had an interview with the guy and I told him about Graduate Image. So it looked like I had experience. And this is the thing, right? You make it up as you go along, but you tell a really good story about how brilliant you are. He's never going to watch anything that Graduate Image ever produced. So he thinks I'm great. He said, "When can you start?" And I said, "Now." And he said, "Okay." And I went to the loo. And I had my munch moment. I screamed in the mirror like that. I was so nervous. And that was it. That's where I started until that company went under, and then another company went under, and no one paid me, and then I needed to temp.
Right. I'm seeing more men than women. I want
Yeah,
to
me
really
too.
see gender balance, considering that I really pushing for gender equitable stories. So, but please go ahead.
I have three questions. The first one is, why did it take you so long to come back to Kenya? Kenya being the most successful MTV Sugar ever, 60% youth penetration. Yeah. Secondly, down south is the only country that has literal sexual violence portrayed on screen. I think, yeah, Kenya has, it's assumed that it happened, or probably the next episode we'll see how it happened. But I think its soul assaulting Sholo in down south was really big. And then finally, this is the first season where we don't have anyone from any of the other regions appearing. I think when we went to Niger, I think Nick Mutuma went. I think in down south, somebody went from Nigeria and they met Bongi at the airport. So that's how they were introduced. And then also just rolling back, going to Francophone Africa, we had somebody else from. Yeah, so why isn't this in this season us having somebody else from any of those regions?
Super fan. I love it. You could go on. Do you know what Mastermind is? Your special topic could be MTV Sugar. My ambition for years has been to come back to Kenya. But I follow the money, and funders like sort of moved away from Kenya, and they were funding in Nigeria and South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire. It took, I would say, it took nearly 5 years from when I went to Shoe Jazz and met with them and said, "Can we do this project together?" for us to get the funding. And now it didn't help that COVID was in between that. And we had and the project with Sugar is a really big social norms change project, but it took a long time, and it really is about funding. So that's why, not because we didn't have the passion to do it. We absolutely love being here. I can't tell you why there is no one here from Mashariki from other series, because I wasn't involved in Mashariki. Mashariki, I think, is brilliant. So I can't even answer that one, because that would be wrong of me to do so. In terms of showing sexual violence on screen, you're right. When Sulo is raped by Sol, oh, that was a hard watch. In fact, when I watched the edit, I phoned up Stephanie, who played Sulo, to check she was okay. And we made sure that she was okay. I have seen all the episodes I said of Mashariki, and the last episode that I have seen, and it's an offline, I actually spoke to the team and I said, it's so intense and violent what I've just seen. I'm really it's a lot. So I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. I know that they are thinking about how they do it. Sometimes in the stories that we tell, we don't have to show in order to be able to put across those messages. So I think Mashariki potentially is going to show, quite a bit of violence, but I don't know, because I don't know how they're going to edit. But it's a lot. I think we were all quite affected by seeing Sulo on screen being raped, and it was really difficult for everybody. And we're not sure whether we needed to show it in order to still have an impact. So I think we have to balance things out by bearing the audience in mind. Also, by the way, we have the Kenya Censorship Board that we have to show everything to. It's a fact. So I know that it means that on Citizen, this series isn't shown till 11 o'clock at night. So we have to really think about those things as well.
Perfect. I said gender. So 2 more questions. Actually, I'm only taking the 3 only. I'm so sorry. We are past time though. But you okay?
Don't look at me. I've got all the time. I'm here. So.
Hi, my name is Wanjira Mwangi,
and I am a producer, part owner of a production space. And mainly mine is centered on being able to fundraise for your impact stories. So, how are you able to start? Okay, most of the time we've been working backwards. So, you have already the story, it's very impactful. You can see how it's impactful because that's how we're doing more of docus. So, we're already seeing the impact. But now, how do you fundraise to be able to tell those stories so that you're not really doing everything out of pocket every single time? Because sometimes you were very excited about a story and you're like, yes, I need to tell this story. But you're looking at your bank and you're like, gotta think twice. And this is moving away from even being able to get let's say I have to give you the space or be able to give all those opportunities, but not really making it profitable, but making it kind of work for you also. Yes.
Well, making it work for you also is really important. You don't need enormous amounts, but you need enough, right? You want enough to live. I think that's really fundamental. Look, I cheated in my career. I had MTV behind me. So when I knocked on the door of funders, I was knocking on the door as MTV. So I may make it sound like it was easy and it was a slog. It was always a slog. It also helped that I had MTV behind me. I would say make sure that you are looking out for all the opportunities out there. So follow the funding, right? Be on the right emails where people are sending you things through saying, we want to fund these sorts of stories in these sorts of spaces in Kenya. If I don't know if any of you have heard of HEVA, and also Next Narrative Africa Fund. So Next Narrative Africa Fund is right now, I think it's opening. If it hasn't opened already, it's opening in the next couple of weeks. They are going to give out small grants of up to $50,000 to $60,000 to help people finish writing. And their development. And that's a decent chunk of money to get to the development stage. And then stage 2, they will give equity funding of up to 30% of production costs. So everything has to be a co-production. So it doesn't mean you can just get the money and run with it, but definitely go to Next Narrative Africa Fund's website and see if that is relevant for you. They're looking for gender stories. They work with HEVA. So that's really important. That's a really good opportunity as well. Follow the money. Yeah. And get a good brand behind you. And think about different ways you can do it, like find brands. MasterCard Foundation is a great one. I know they do work here.
My name is Milton, CMO at Seller, a social commerce platform that allows creators to sell all kinds of digital products and content. I would like to know what are your thoughts and views on the impact of artificial intelligence when it comes to storytelling, script writing, and acting as well?
Good question. I'm astounded. I don't know about you guys. In the last 4 months, I probably use AI every day. I do, right? I'm not ashamed of it. I don't have a team anymore. I have never made a deck in my life, right? Before I left MTV, I had a team. I would go to my team and say, we need to make a deck. I want it to say this and look like this. And someone brilliant in my team would come back and they go, here you go. And I'd edit it, right? I'd go, oh, yeah, we need a bit of that and a bit more of that. We'll move that around there. Who does that for me now? Me, right? I have to do it. So I use AI to help me do it. I have to write proposals. I'd use AI to help me write proposals, to collaborate with. I think, firstly, if you're using AI, be honest about it and use it well. If you guys think that you can say, write me a script on, and then just walk away and go, my script's delivered, it's going to be so bad, right? At some point, it's going to be so good that you can just do that, but it's not there yet. collaborate with it. And I think, personally, I think it's okay as long as you're honest and open about it. I think on copyright and IP, that's a whole different topic that Ida's telling me we don't have time to discuss. One thing I'm going to say, because no one's asked me this question, has anyone ever watched a vertical drama? Excellent. Right. Vertical dramas are like TV for the TikTok generation. I think vertical dramas are an amazing opportunity for us impact storytellers to hijack. They're like telenovelas, they're 20, 90-second episodes that you can WhatsApp to people. They've got clickbait titles like A Sexy Cowboy Saved My Life or My Boss is My Secret Sperm Donor. They're so awful. They're like, you've got to watch them. They're like amazing. But imagine if we use that to create stories around impact and you started putting it out on WhatsApp and you started doing polling with it and you started putting clinic phone numbers attached to it. So although AI is not just the future, it's definitely here. I think vertical dramas as a new, it's like a couple of years old. It started in China and India and it's now sort of seeding around. I'm hijacking it for impact. So yeah, that you didn't ask me that question, but I'm just adding it in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here, Georgia. And you mentioned Reggie in the beginning, and so I wanted to offer something that maybe will be of value to your audience here today. In South Africa, as Georgia mentioned, Reggie is a young high school student who comes out as being gay. So we did polling to see how season one, when he comes out, we did polling across the country with 3,000 young people, if you remember. In those days, polling meant about 30,000 pieces of paper that you have a team going through counting the ticks, right? Who comes out as the favorite character for 14 to 18-year-olds? Reggie, by far. We were sitting in all sorts of communities, talking to young people, and all the young boys are all saying, Reggie, Reggie, he's my favorite character. And we're thinking, wait, did suddenly stigma around LGBT change? Are suddenly young boys happy with being gay? Are all the young boys in high school suddenly gay? But it wasn't that. When we asked them, why is Reggie your favorite character? They said, because he stood up to his father. And what we found from that is you humanized Reggie. You didn't make it about Reggie being gay. You made Reggie a human being. And that's for me with all these years of MTV Sugar. It's because you've told stories about people's lives, not told stories about themes. And so in making Reggie human, what happened was that you reduced stigma towards young people in high schools who are gay, who are lesbian, who are bi, who are transsexual. That the social impact was by telling people's stories, making them real, not making them objects for scorn anymore, but just by humanizing. And so with Reggie, you had an enormous impact on attitude towards LGBT in high schools, but you did it by coming through the side door, not through the front door, and trying to give messages about, oh, we must accept LGBT, nothing's wrong with LGBT, they have a right, this and that. So I really have valued for all these years and saw from that very first season of Kenya 15 years ago in Vienna, you focused on people's lives rather than focusing on the messages that you want to tell. And that to me is part of why Sugar has been so successful. Now, if I'm allowed, I get to ask the audience one question. Would it be of value to you if Georgia sits down and tells her story of 15 years of working on Sugar, her insider stories, her tricks, the things that work, the things that she learned from doing it, how to do it? Would you like to hear her? Should she write the book? Okay. Is it unanimous? Okay, Georgia, you've got a job.
I did I tell you this? Do you know I'm thinking about writing a book?
No, you didn't. You didn't tell me.
I told Ida. I told her I'm thinking about it. But it's not my story. It's about the women storytellers who are it's like the rewrite generation. How we're able to tell stories by and about women to make an impact. So but I'm thinking about. I've got about as far as the title so far. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It could be my next life moment.
It's a sign, Georgia. It's a sign. Absolutely. Just allow me to.
So thank you, Georgia. My name is Jackie. I have two questions. Let me start with the first one. Oh, I'm short. I need to stand. My size. So what is the secret ingredient to ensure that we build legacy projects that outlives the storylines? That's the first one. And the second one, when sugar came to Kenya, there were lots of, well, some outside noises that almost opposed sugar being screened in the communities. For some of us who are programmers in the communities in terms of public health, know exactly what transpired back in the field. They said sugar is too sexual, a lot of sex scenes, sex nyingi hapo sana. So how can writers resist the pressure to dilute a script or a message? Where is the thin line? Do you run to marketing, censorship, or what? Culture? So those are my two questions.
Okay, those are really hard questions, Jackie. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
So the legacy one. I mean, I don't know, because honestly, I don't know how to answer that, because I never had this strategy or this vision to be able to sit and talk about my 30-year career, and this is what I've done, and that I've been able to walk away from MTV Staying Alive, and it is still, that heart is still very much alive, and MTV Sugar Mashariki is amazing, and it doesn't have anything to do with me whatsoever, and I am so proud of it. I don't know. I think it's genuinely about different voices. And although I do have an ego, because I think if you run an organization, you end up, even if you didn't start out with one, you end up with an ego, right? Because you just do, sorry. But actually it's about being able to listen to other people's opinions. So the one thing, I had a brilliant team, and many of whom are still there, and many of whom I've worked with for a long, long time. And they can all tell you that I was right about 10% of the time. And they were right about 90% of the time, or 100% of the time, maybe. And so it's about being able to listen to different voices. And even if you come up with those initial ideas, which, was often like my space, but also knowing that everybody else would shape them into things that were better than what I originally conceived. So teamwork is the dream work. That's a bit cliched, I'm afraid, but I would definitely say that. Your second question, I think it goes back to what I said before about not breaking boundaries. You can't smash the doors down. You have to move things an inch at a time. You have to, did I want Reggie's storyline, his coming out storyline, to be everywhere, or the storyline on safe and legal abortion, which I thought was is so important? I wanted it to be everywhere, and it couldn't be. So it really is about treading that line, making sure that you're going to be respectful to where you're working, but also about making sure that you're still going to be able to engage the audience, that they feel that you're talking to them.
She answered your question. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope you don't mind if I stand, because there's someone there blocking. So my name is Caroline Boothia. I'm a writer, producer, and also my background is I'm a HIV trainer, HIV awareness trainer. So around 2010, 2011 to 2013, 14 there, that's mainly what I was doing majorly. And one of the tools that we were using was actually the fast sugar that you created. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about how, just to give you an encouragement and comment about how much impact it had on the ground, because I was working with NGOs at the time. And one of the things we were doing in the youth centers that we were working in is, apart from the messaging and talking about safe sex and using condoms or abstaining or whichever methodology we would use, we would also make sure we showed the 3-part, 4-part miniseries for MTV Sugar. And it had an astounding effect, because many times, even when we were not teaching, we just tell the kids, the young people, just come in there, and the series would play on repeat. I was actually talking to James about it. And that's what we would do. And it would do most of the work for us. And for many of the people, we would leave the condoms that have been given by the government over there, and anyone could feel free to take them. And at that time, part of the work we were doing, we were also being given targets on how many people we needed to test every week or every month or things like that. And from some of the people that I was testing, I would even ask, why did you come for a HIV test today? And many would say, it's because I've just come from watching Sugar on KBC or on KTN or on Citizen, because it was airing on all 3 channels at that time. Some would come together as couples, some would come as 2 guy friends together, some would come for group counseling or group testing or things like that. And it was funny that for many of them, there was even one guy who told me the only reason he has abstained is, he said, after watching Sugar, he's decided he doesn't need to rush into having sex. He's rethinking about it twice, that maybe it's not worth the risk and all that. So it was doing a lot of work for us. There was a guy, let me just add another last story. There was a guy who actually also told me he's decided to continue being a virgin because he was 17. He was like, there's no rush. I was like, okay. And of course, for me, I told him, and the day you're ready, you'll need to make sure that you do use a CD. So I just wanted to encourage you on that and tell you, if no one has ever told you the major impact, for me, I saw it 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, the ripple effect was there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 100%. Thank you so much. I can resonate because, again, I'm a millennial and I grew up with Sugar. But then I just want to go back to your question on, you're still getting some bit of negative response while using the content. What can we do to ensure that the stigma is not really being used against us or against the people who are actually wanting to educate with that content? I think that was part of her question.
I didn't answer your question properly, did I, Jackie? Well, I think part of it is you have to work hand in hand, or we certainly always did hand in hand with the government. And that's difficult, right? And I'm not saying the Kenyan government, I'm saying every government is difficult. But we took one script to the Nigerian government and they said, oh, a lot of this is set in nightclubs. Our young people don't go to nightclubs. If you take that out of the script, that will be okay. That was a really bad Nigerian accent. I apologize for anyone who sorry. But we work with them. And we have to explain to them. So there isn't a magic formula. And I think in the communities, that, Jackie, is your job that you do brilliantly, right? Because you work, I know that you personally work with the national government, but you also work with the regional and the local governments. And if you don't bring them in, then they are going to sit outside with their arms crossed and say no. Right? Everyone needs to feel included. And that's why we always have positive and negative deviance. So we'll always have a good parent role model, but we'll also have a bad parent role model, a good teacher, a bad teacher. So it's what we do on screen, but also it's about making sure that people within the community feel that they are, embraced within it as well, and that you are following the work, that we're not trying to do anything different from what the governments are doing. We all ultimately are aiming for the same thing. Just some people, I know you talked about abstaining, but abstaining was never really a strong message of MTV Sugar. We wanted to say, you choose what you want to do and when you want to do it. And if you choose to have sex, you do it safely. And if you're not having sex, then that's cool too. But, the abstinence message was never a strong message. But, we wanted to make sure that everybody felt included.
Absolutely. No. Yeah. I think one of the things that I continue to learn is that when it comes to impact storytelling, a lot of the stories are uncomfortable, and not everyone is comfortable either, you know, showing or receiving, or your kids in school are being shown this kind of content, right? But again, it's something that still needs to be said and stories need to be told. I have one more question from somebody watching online. Um, how is actual behavioral change measured and demonstrated to funders for renewed funding?
I need to call on a resident scientist here. um, in many varied and different ways. So I said before, I'm not the scientist. I don't do the evaluation. I can interpret the results. Well, once someone's interpreted them, I can then turn them into common English. But there are two. You can do quantitative, which is around numbers, and you can do qualitative, which is really about those small groups of people talking together. So it's about showing content and seeing how attitudes change, how knowledge changes. And then now what we're doing with this, MTV Staying Alive is doing with this series of MTV Sugar, is seeing if they can shift norms, gender norms, which is a whole different ball game in itself. And how that is measured, I don't know. It's really difficult because with the very first MTV Sugar, what we were trying to do was get young people to use condoms. Well, how do you measure that? Excuse me, the last time you had sex, did you use a condom? And was it because of MTV Sugar? It's like a fairly personal question. Those questions were asked, by the way, but it's really hard to measure things like that. But there are brilliant minds out there who do it. You can do it yourself in small focus groups, but I think you need to bring someone in to really advise you on that.
Perfect. There's a question there, Nancy.
How are you? I'm Mugo, a filmmaker. I'll focus my questions on pre-production and post-production, specifically distribution. So on pre-production, how do you decide on the story to choose, considering we have different social societies, beliefs, myths, and such? And number two, on distribution, the business side of the business. So how do you break even and have profit to do another project?
Well, that question's easy to answer because we were a never for-profit organization. We just had to cover our costs. And that was the most important thing. So we never looked to make money. In terms of pre-production, and your question's gone out of my head. Sorry, I thought I had it then. I know it was about pre-production. Remind me. Oh, storylines. Thank you. So storylines were a mixture of the things that our funders were paying us to message about. So that's really where we started. But then we would sit down with young people and we would do focus groups with them. So we would sit down with 10 kids in 3 different groups, and we would say, what do you care about at the moment? What music are you listening to? What do you have for breakfast? What do you do on a Saturday night or a Friday night? Do you go to school? What happens at school? What's the biggest thing that's going on in your life at the moment? So although we knew that we had to have messaging around PrEP, for example, or self-testing or contraception, we also wanted to reflect the stories that the young people told us. One of the interesting things that came out of Mashariki after the premiere was, I know that the focus groups that Jim ran beforehand, they were then brought back and they came to watch the premiere. And one of the things they said was, we can't believe that the comments we made having read the scripts had been listened to. We thought you were doing just a tick box exercise. And even if we said, we don't like the way this character treats his girlfriend, but and there'd be a reason behind it, but the team took it on board. And I think that's just so important, is it's not just about creating the messaging, but really having that source of people that you create it from and listen to them. That came from Jackie.
Perfect. I'll take one more question and then final question. You. Yeah? Okay. Nancy?
Good afternoon.
My name is Malik, and I have a question. So currently, we are running a program called Cinema Mtaani. It's cinema in the community, basically done by the creatives in the community, and our target community are marginalized and underrepresented community. So currently, we are based in Kibera, born and raised there. So there's a time we did short film. So when we did the scripting, we approached organizations working with girls and women in the community, and we told them we want to do a short film on pads, sanitary towels. And for us, we are advocating for community pad dispensers, whereby these pad dispensers, we build stations where these women and girls from the community can pick them. Because the stories I collected when we were doing the script development were we have girls and women in the community that cannot manage to buy the 70 bob packet for the sanitary towel. So they have to purchase one. And right now, if you see, there's a change on the menstrual cycle of women. Within 24 hours, it's safe for a woman to use at least 4 pieces. I don't know, because right now they're having a heavy flow as compared to previous, because due to a lot of change, food they're taking. So when we approached them, they were like, okay, so if we fund you and this project goes on, how will we fundraise for us? So for us, we are for the impact, and we want a change in the community for our women, and we were pushing this conversation. So after we released the short film, they were like, can we work with you now? For us on our side, we want money to continue doing other projects under the program, but also on the ethical side, we already seen their side of story. It's more of they are not into the community, they are for what they are getting for them. So can we work? How do you handle such situations when you are dealing with social impact initiatives in the community, and also we are a social enterprise whereby you want to see the impact, but also you want to make a profit to continue doing other projects? Thank you.
Everyone wants to make money. It's tough, right? Personally, I think like you have limits, right? Your responsibility is to get your film made and to work with as many partners as possible, but you can't then be responsible for funding them, which is what you're saying, yes? That's what they're asking you to do. Did I understand that correctly? Yeah. So I don't know. You have to hope that your film will get more people interested in the work that they're doing, and therefore other people will fund them. But I don't think it sits on your shoulders to fund them. I think, if that's helpful. Can I just say this young man here had a question? Just for the last one. He had such a good smile.
Oh, thank you
So
so
quick,
much.
quick.
Okay, my name is Obel, and I wanted to ask on funding. In situations where the funders want you to go a particular direction, and maybe your idea you wanted to tackle much more thing. So, like, how do you handle control from funders? And the second question is, how do you keep staying young and fresh?
Okay. Funders. There's been lots of questions about funders. So, firstly, we were always very, we had a lot of barriers with our funders in a good way. Like they would come to us and say, we want you to fund this. And we'd say, great, we will do that. But we're also doing this, this, and this. So, a funder who was paying us to talk about self testing, not their funding was not necessarily anything to do with funding around Reggie's storyline coming out, or like we were funded by the US government and they were funding the series which we talked about, safe and legal abortion, which it was Trump's first presidency and they definitely couldn't be associated with it. They allowed us to do it. We just took their logo off on the abortion episode, which was interesting. I will say funding is always tough. Funding has never, ever been tougher, right? Because of USAID shutting down, because of the UK government changing the way that they fund international development, a lot of the Nordic countries are changing the way they fund. And I don't know if you guys get government funding, but maybe some of your funders get funding internationally. It is hard out there, right? And it is a struggle. And I empathize with all of you because we all want to create and we are, all have all of these amazing ideas and just want to do more and more and more because we know we can change the world with it, but it costs money. And I don't have simple solutions for that. But I think if you can continue to put your voices out there, continue to tell your stories and other people's stories, then I hope that you are able to attract the funding that you need in these really difficult times when storytelling is one of the first things that's going to get cut. Right. So for us as creators, we need to be as even more creative when we think about the fundraising because we're not top of the list, unfortunately. So can I just say it's been such a pleasure I'm sorry if I've gone on, but thanks for all your questions. They have been fantastic, and I wish you luck, and I really look forward to staying engaged with the work that you're doing.
She's wrapped up, but every time I finish moderation, there's always one thing that I do, which is what's next? Your parting shot. So when it comes to impact storytelling, when it comes to education entertainment, what future is there? And what can the people in the room do to ensure that we still continue telling these stories?
Vertical dramas are the thing. I'm telling you, they're not expensive to make in the scheme of things. They're fun. You can reach a lot of people with them, and you can prove impact with them. None of this has been done before. I just think it is. If I was still working at MTV Staying Alive, my team would be rolling their eyes, going, "I wish you would stop banging on about vertical dramas," and I would make it happen as well. So I think that's the thing. And for me personally, I might write a book, maybe. I want to continue, whether I continue to personally create, I don't know, but I want to continue being able to use my experience working with others who are doing the creating, just being able to give them some advice along the way and hopefully to get funding for Inuadada.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Georgia, for your time. This has been amazing, right? It's gone longer than expected, but again, the questions came from the audience. I'm sure they are more, they're living here with, some inspiration, something to take home with. One of the things that was asked was what opportunities exist. And it would be unfair if I don't tell you the opportunities that are existing right now at iHub and CC Hub, right? So number one, Newton has insisted that I say this. Please join the creator community here. All the opportunities are posted there, right? There's a QR code that should be put up at some point. Very quick. Just scan there and just join the community. Number two, we have our creator incubator coming up. I'm saying it correctly, right? For storytellers, cohort 2. So make sure you look out for it and apply. There is funding that exists there. Number 3, we have Stawi Spaces. Some of you here are beneficiaries of the Stawi Spaces. So basically, we give you opportunity to either host an event here or use our space, our co-working space, and it's free. We are not charging. And number 4, we have the faith-based. Allow me to read this. We have we have an open call for faith-driven Christian and Muslim content creators in Kenya and Nigeria, where we are trying to attract over 500 storytellers to join the program. The call is live, so please make sure that you actually share with your people within your community. And let's see where these stories take us, right? So thank you so much for taking the time to come to join this conversation. All your insightful questions, concerns have been absolutely amazing, and moderating this session has been quite inspiring. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Check, check.
You're such a rush, my baby, slow down, come find your love. I'm hoping you see me, come serve it. I love it when you serve it. I'm my body on TV. Oh, this feeling I can hide. Like feeling like lost mine. And I just don't know why.